What is UV mapping and UV unwrapping? Let's just look at Wikipedia. UV mapping is the 3D modeling process of projecting a 2D image to a 3D model's surface for texture mapping. Essentially, U and V refer to X and Y in the 2D world. Before we get started, I'm just going to go over a few basic ways that I use the body paint UV edit. I've just got a cube here with the UV texture that we are going to be mapping onto our character. I'm in UV polygon mode here, which allows me to select the polygonal faces and move around the UV coordinates without actually distorting our mesh. So I can select on the polygons here, and I can move them around and align them for my UV texture. You're going to be seeing me do this a few times. We have our mirror U and our mirror V buttons up here, which essentially just allows us to flop our UV polygon so we can have that properly aligned for our UV texture. And just select that, and that gives us our proper alignment. I can rotate that around and get that into place. So we've got our character here. We're just gonna hide the hair and the teeth and the eyes because we are only concerned with our body for our UV texturing purposes. Now I will be committing our body to a higher subdivision, but before we do that, I want to make all of my edge selections, as it will copy over once we make this into an editable object with our subdivision. So it's just a lot easier to select our edges before we add more geometry into our character. So what I'm going to do here is select all of the edges where I think that I'm going to want to lay flat for our UV texture. So we can think of how we want the pants to be cut. That would be along the seams, and the same as the shirt. We can follow that, how they're found in real life. You've got a front and a back for the shirt, and there's seams along the side. So I'm just going to get rid of some of these loop cuts that we don't want on our leg, making sure that our edges all line up correctly and all end touching another edge. Get rid of that. So we'll have a loop around the inside of the pants and the side of the pants, and we can get rid of our edge selections here. We can get rid of those loop selections that we made that intersect the sole of our shoe. We can just have one loop selection around the whole sole of our shoe. Let's get rid of those guys. And let's get rid of those guys as well. And let's just loop select around the edge of our sole. What's that called? The side sole of the shoe. I'm sure it has a name that escapes me at the moment. Let's just make a cut along the back of our shoe here to give it a seam. It looks pretty good there. And we are going to make edge selections right along the middle of our pants, and we need to make a selection around where the arm meets the inside of our t-shirt here. And I don't like my arms having the selection around the middle like that. I'm going to go from the side. Let's get rid of those guys and that guy. And I'm going to make my arm selection right around here. Okay, I think I've got everything selected that I want. Actually, let's make some selects around the mouth here. And we want to cut along the inside of the mouth as well, but let's get rid of new selections we made just around the face. Can lay the front and back of the head flat. Great. That's essentially the selects that I want for this. We're going to do a pretty basic texturing job on this guy, so we're not going too crazy at the moment. Now I can connect my objects and delete, and you'll see that our selections have carried over to the higher polygon count. And now I can actually grab a couple more edges to refine here. Let's just get the shirt and the pants where the crease is. And let's get rid of any stray edge selections that we may have, like that guy. And I'm going to do the same thing for the shirt and arm selection. Let's get that right in the middle of where they join and get rid of these leftover points and make sure that our edges all connect. And we'll do the same for the other arm. And let's just make sure that connects there. Get rid of that stray guy there. Again, connecting here. And getting rid of this line here. I think that's all that we need to make our UV texture. Okay, let's load up our UV texture. You can find that in the download links, or there's a million of them in Google Images. And I'm just going to add that to my body. Doesn't that look great? It's going to help us to align along our edge selections. Let's go into Body Paint UV mode, set our projection to frontal. I'm going to give our texture a little more detail here, so let's bump that up to 16 megabytes and see what we're doing. Let's go to our front view, and we can relax our UV along ABF. Make sure that we have our cut selected edges selected and pinned to neighbors. And you can see that it's cut our textures along where our edges were selected. We have a couple of overlapping polygons here, but those can be cleaned up fairly easy. Now I can alt-click on a group of polygons, and that will select all of the connected polygons. So I can alt-click here. I can move our faces off to the side here. I'm going to set everything up outside of our dark gray area, and then once I've got everything in a position where I like it, I will bring it back in and scale it onto that area. Now you see I have two overlapping polygon areas here. Usually if I alt-click on them and apply our ABF a couple more times, it will properly ungroup them. So I am just going to align our front and back here. I'm going to flip that along the U in the V so that we can properly read our UV texture map here. And we're just going to rough everything into place here. Here's the back of our shirt. All of our controls in the UV editor are the same as in our viewport. So our rotate tool will rotate our polygons. Our move tool will be used to move our polygons along, and our scale tool will scale our polygons up and down. The hotkeys for those are E, R, and T. We can grab our pants here and start getting those into place. There's our two front legs here. I guess there's only two legs, but you get what I'm saying. And the back here, oh, you can see that we have some overlapping geometry here. So if I hit apply a few more times, I can get those ungrouped. And let's scale this guy down using our hotkey T and clicking and dragging down. Let's get that aligned into place. Okay, look at that. Let's grab our arms here. Make sure that we have no overlapping polygons. Our ABF apply isn't helping us here, so we can go into the live selection tool and actually select and deselect the UV polygons that we do or do not want selected. So let's just grab one side of the arm and we can grab our rectangle selection and deselect those polygons and move this side of the arm into place, and alt selecting the top of our arm and we can get him moved into place. Looks like our UV textures are lined up nicely there. Let's scale down our arms, and I'm going to rotate it and tuck it just under the sleeve here and get everything positioned nice and snug here. Let's work on our left arm here. So the top of our arm, make sure that's aligned correctly in our UV space. I can read our numbers and letters correctly, so we're good. We'll rotate this guy around as well and tuck him under the arm. Now, this is the inside of my mouth. Not really too concerned about these being properly aligned, as we are not going to see them, but let's make sure that they make sense. Move this guy over here, and we can scale these guys down because there's not going to be too much detail going into our texture map. What have we got over here? There's our shoe. Let's try our apply ABF a couple times, and look at that. It has de-overlapped our geometry here. So let's get our shoe into place over here. I can alt click on that side of my shoe, can rotate it around, and scale it down. Let's scale it right down. And we can do the same for the other side. We can rotate him and scale him into place, and let's match him up with the size of our other shoe and the sides of our soles here. We can scale those guys right down and move them into position as well, right below the shoe. And that looks like the sole of our shoes. Rotate this guy around and place him over here. And we can do the same for this guy and get him placed over with the rest of our shoe and pants. And our other sole over here. Let's get him into position and scale him down as well. And we're almost there. What do we got here? We have, oh, there's our mouth, our lips. So let's apply our ABF. And it looks like it's properly aligned. We can scale it down and let's just move it over to the middle of our head. Here. We have no overlapping polygons. Great. And our other shoe, we can hit our apply ABF a couple more times to lose the overlapping UV polygons. And we can scale this guy and rotate him right down into place and position him on the other side of our body. Let's just get him scaled down to the same size as our other shoe. And we'll rotate and scale this guy as well and get him into place. Awesome. Make sure we have no overlapping UV polygons happening here. And we've got our character laid out. Let's move him onto this gray area and scale it into place. So all of our UV polygons are going to be contained inside of this work area here. Look at that. Now we can make a new texture here. 4K is more than enough for what we will be doing here. Call it character color. Okay. We'll create a new UV mesh layer and go to File, Save Texture. I save them out as Photoshop files. Save it to the directory you want, and we can open up Photoshop, and here's our UV texture. There's our UV mesh layer. Let's lock that because we do not want to be moving or adjusting anything on the UV layer. I'm going to be bringing in my logo to use as a color guide for my texture. Let's just place that over there. And then the alpha of my logo, I'm going to bring in and I'm going to be placing that on the front of my t-shirt. So I'll just make that into a smart object for the moment and move that and scale that into position of where I would like that on my t-shirt. Scale that guy down. That looks pretty cool. Okay, let's make some color guides to work with. This will be my skin color. I can duplicate this guy a couple of times. And duplicate him again, bring him out, and make this into a layer. Color guide. Great. Let's select the shirt and pant colors that we want to use that I'll be essentially taking from my logo colors. There we go. Like that blue, and that blue for my pants I think will work well. Awesome. I can get rid of my logo there now. I'll lock up my color guide so I'm not touching that layer. And a skin layer. I can essentially paint this whole document my skin color and just hide that for a second because that will be our base layer once we finalize this file. And let's just make a selection area of where we want our shirt color to be. And I can select the color I want for my shirt and fill that in there. Wonderful. Let's create our pants. Let's select around the UV polygons that we have laid out for our pants. There we go. Now let's select our pants color and we can fill that in as well. Let's make a new layer for our shoes and let's start on the soles of our shoes and make a selection for the whites of our soles. And along the side here. And let's select a white color. Now what we really never want to do is use any purely white or purely black values. You want a little bit of color value in that information, especially coming from a broadcast standpoint. Your color correct guy is going to kill you if you use pure blacks or pure whites. So we always want to take them up or down just a little bit. So we've got our shoes created here. We can move our skin to the back and hide our UV mesh layer and color guide and save that guy out. Now back in Cinema, in our color layer, we can load that color texture. And we will keep a little specular on. We'll widen that out and take it right down, and we can apply this character color to our character. And look at that. We've got our UV texture on there. Let's up our detail here to 16 meg and look at that. Now let's just create some base colors for our other objects in our scene. Our hair, we'll just have some brown hair. Again, we'll take the specular right down. Let's add that to our hair object. Our eyes, I'm going to make these editable, so I will be able to add our pupil and our eye white in. Let's just look at our geometry here. Let's select where we want our pupil to be, that middle circle there. Let's make this black. Again, we don't want to go 100% black. Let's bring our width and our specular right in so we have a little white speck on our pupil. And the whites of our eye, whatever that is scientifically called, it's not coming to me at the moment. We're going to have a slight yellowish tint into our eyes, and I'm going to add a bit of reflection into our eyes. And we can bring the opacity of that right down, make sure that our pupil color is on top of our eye white. We can hide our FFD again. And we need some teeth color. All right. We're also going to give that a slight yellowish tint. No one's teeth are completely white. Yours might be, but I drink a lot of coffee. And we'll add some more reflection back into our teeth. These are very simple material setups, and you can please do what you feel is necessary to get a great look. And we have our character complete.